All right, so as of right this moment, the waiting room is empty. Jeff, if anybody else joins the waiting room, I will let you know. I'll do that verbally.
67 people, so we're way over a quorum. So I'm declaring a quorum.
Hey, Dorothy, I think we got you.
Okay, I didn't hear.
Dorothy Kennedy, yes, we got you.
No. I was telling folks, I was saying names as I was admitting you from the waiting room. So there may have been a little overlap between those two. We have quorum and we have a large number of folks who are here. Yep. So I am gonna turn things over to our fearless leader, Jerry Hensel.
Hello, everybody. The first item that I see on the agenda is a how to vote statement, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I hereby call the annual congregational meeting of the Northwoods Unitarian Universalist Church to order. And is this a good time to talk about how we vote, or should we do the background stuff first?
Just one sec, Jerry. I'm going to mute all so we don't have any interruptions. So you'll have to unmute yourself after I do that. Okay. Unmute yourself again, and you should be good to go, Jerry.
Okay.
Is there anyone else besides Jerry, Beth, and Hal, who will need a screen share? And myself? If there is,
I don't think so.
Let me know, because I will have to make you a co-host, but you guys should be good to go now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I hereby call the annual congregational meeting to order. I propose we begin with opening words from our minister, Reverend Sarah Prickett.
Thank you, Jerry. I have opening words. Oh, here they are. In our circle again. Here we are in our circle again. A circle of vision and reflection, a forum for deciding and empowering. Here we are at the base of another bridge, another space spanning the shores of today and tomorrow, beckoning us to cross the chasm one day at a time. Here we are, gathered again at the cusp of the future, at the boundary that holds community together. We are here in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows faced and befriended. With a servant's heart, with a leader's listening, with a parent's love, truer than all our inner trembling, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds. Blessed be.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reverend Sarah. At this meeting, we will be voting on the proposed 2021 to 2022 budget. Our year runs from June to July. We will be electing new members to fill leadership positions, and we will be hearing reports from the president of the Board of Trustees, myself, from the treasurer, minister, and coordinator of religious education, as we do every congressional meeting. In addition, we will have two reports, one on our developmental goal survey from Sage Accardo, and one on church reopening from myself. So to start with, I'd like to introduce Hal to give our annual treasury report.
Okay, I've already I put the written version of the report in the chat. So if for some reason you want it, it should be there. So basically the report is that despite the poor state of the local economy, the Northwoods financial situation is sound for the moment and should be fine through the next fiscal year, ending June 2022. The budget for 2021-2022 is balanced, but many of the income items depend upon when we get back to the church and how much of our regular routine we can restart. Our pledges for this year, which are for next fiscal year, are almost identical to the pledges for this year. At the end of April, talking about this year's budget, we had received 91% of the budgeted amount in our pledge collection. And by this, I mean what the budget said we should have collected by April. We got 91% of that. And I hope that that will improve a bit as people do some catch up, as they often do in the last 2 months of the fiscal year. Many of our other fundraisers have been negatively affected. Cash plate collections, rentals, service auction, book sales, and others. However, the bottom line is that our cash flow should be about zero for the current fiscal year. In other words, our income and expenses pretty much balanced. The reason for this is the $36,400 that we received from the Payroll Protection Program. This was a loan from the U.S. Treasury that was forgiven as it was designed to be. The intent of the PPP was to allow small businesses and churches to navigate the pandemic with little financial damage, and it worked pretty well for us. We currently have about $112,000 in our operating account, so we still have some wiggle room for next year. We don't know how bad the local economy will be next fiscal year or how badly that will affect our income. But I'm assuming that the local economy will allow us to resume activities much like we did in 2019 to 2020 fiscal year. As a result, the new budget looks a lot like the current budget, since both were modeled after the 2019 to 2020 budget experience. Of course, the coronavirus still may have some surprises for us, but I'm assuming that we will be pretty much back to normal next fiscal year. We have the resources to handle some financial challenges, but hopefully we will be back in our usual routine for this fiscal year. And that's the treasurer's report. Are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much, Hal.
I see a question in the chat.
Oh, someone has asked, can we put the balance sheet and income statement in chat?
I can put the budget in the chat if that's what you're looking at. I have the treasurer's report there already. Let me see if I can. All right.
That was me that asked. I just want to know if we can put the profit loss statement in the balance sheet to see where the church's finances stand. But if that's the budget.
Yeah, you have the budget and the treasurer's report in there now. But we're going to vote on the budget later, so don't ask questions about that at the moment.
Are there other questions? Just as a note here, our format for questions is that we will have an opportunity for questions at several points during the service, or during this meeting, sorry. And we will ask speakers to be, questioners to be succinct. All questioners will be heard before anyone can get a second opportunity to ask a question, and we have a 15-minute time limit total on questions to prevent our meeting from going too far into overtime. You can put questions in the chat if you want, or you can email questions to me. And if questions are put in the chat, we don't have time to answer them, we will email you an answer back when we have the opportunity. Thank you very much. Okay, Hal, thank you. So the next item is the President's Report, which is going to be on a PowerPoint. That seems to work pretty well to get the gist of what happened this year, and it will also be uploaded to the church. I misspoke when I talked about the church year. It's I meant to think the end of the month I was referring to. It's from June 1st. I'm sorry, I said it again. From July 1st to June 30th. Thank you. So Beth, can we start the PowerPoint for the President's Report? I'm sure it will come in just a moment. There we go. Thank you. Next slide, please. What I wanted to say was, first off, that what we did this year, we accomplished due to the work of many, many people at Northwoods. In this talk, I'll give you a snapshot of things that I was involved with that we accomplished, but other people helped. I could not have done everything myself. In fact, sometimes all I did was cheer people on to do what they were going to do anyway, which is great. My first thanks is to everyone at Northwoods, because without your working hands, heads, and hearts, this church would not be what it is today, a very vibrant and active church. Next, please. Financing this dream. We could not have done this without money, and Hal was our able treasurer. He was able to obtain a PPP loan, which was forgiven. Amazingly, pledges have pretty much kept up this year, and I want to thank everyone for that. The biggest shortfall for us, I believe, was having the lack of donations in the Sunday plate. I am so pleased that we managed to keep our doors open. I would like to thank everyone also who had inspired ideas for service auction, virtual events, for small groups, Zoom encounters, and maybe at the end of summer, a few carefully social distanced special events will happen in person again. Next. I want to thank our Sea Justice team. Our sanctuary family transitioned to a new program that will work better for them at the beginning of the year. We had a new family come into our church sanctuary, but complications from COVID prevented them from being able to stay. We restarted our Surge Committee, our Racial Justice Book Group started. We organized BLM protests at the North Shore Bridge. These are all things which I am so glad to see happen and have been done by a lot of people in our church. We have programs for reproductive rights, LGBTQ plus rights. We have our Share the Plate effort, voting rights, Face Together, and many other programs that we have kept going. We also helped a local homeless man with temporary shelter needs. Next, please. Jamie built a new church website for us. At the start of this year, our church administrator, Jamie, began to work on a church website with an advisory team. The website was launched at the end of the summer, and that has been wonderful. Great way to organize our material. We also started a new Zoom channel that we have been using to present materials from our Zoom service. I'm sorry, that should say a YouTube channel, not a Zoom channel. That's my bad. I'm sorry. Next, please. Our RE program. Gay Lynn has greatly improved RE planning and communications. She's purchased programming, recruited teachers, and has revitalized the RE program. She works long hours and has been a real plus, and she's one of our 3 gems. And I love this picture, which was shown during the service today also, because it shows our 3 gems at our church: Jamie, Galen, and Reverend Sarah. Galen also started some adult programs, including the 2-hour church group meetings after services on Sunday with a different group every week. Next, please. Time and talent. Our time and talent survey, which is a great way to connect people to programs at our church that they might find to be meaningful, was carried out despite the pandemic. Beth Marshall created, organized, and collected the results to help us find ways to be part of the beloved community that we want to create. Next, please. Development and Goals Survey. We are partway through our developmental ministry, and we have to assess where we are in terms of achieving all of our goals. We took a survey after 2 of our Zoom services, asking members how they felt about how well we have addressed our goals so far, and then what we can do to meet or improve them over the next few years until the end of our developmental ministry. A lot of volunteers coordinated taking notes and then reducing the results to a savory stew, which you'll get a flavor of later in the meeting today. Next, please. Church affairs. Well, this is a big fun one. We have 3 projects going on, most of which are starting or in the planning stages. We want to remove mold from the ceiling of the sanctuary, and we need to make some modifications to air conditioning to make there be so that there can be less humidity within the air of the building. We are making safety improvements and repairs to the playground equipment, and this is ongoing right now. Connie Newkirk is leading that effort. We will also be working to replace the tile on the floor. I think the developmental ministry has 3 years left to run. Next, please. Church organization. At our board retreat this fall, we discussed how church size affects how churches get things done. Size affects funding, and funding affects resources. In most cases, Northwoods is transitioning from a more family-sized and pastoral church to being a program church. And the difference is who makes decisions and bring things about. In program churches, it comes more from the board. In family-sized and pastoral, more from the people and the minister. We are in several different places depending on the role that we're talking about. And the reason I think this is important is because understanding these things can help us make better use of our resources and deliver a better program. Next, please. We did some heavy reorganization of some of our committees. Building and grounds moved to the model of more of a job jar approach rather than necessarily a regularly meeting committee, with Connie Newkirk taking over as organizer. We had some changes in the Social, Environmental, and Economic Justice Committee, which we also call our C-Justice, with David Shantz chairing, Alex Muir taking over the men's group, me, Jerry Hensel, working more on LGBT justice, and David taking the lead of Surge and the anti-racism book group. Next, please. Leadership. Now, this is kind of my idea of what leadership is and the kind of leadership I've tried to have. I believe that ideas come from the congregation, and the board's job is to help make them happen. If we waited for the board to create things like our social justice initiatives, our social life events, our art events, they would not happen. Those come from you. The board exists to empower the congregation. So when people ask me who the leadership is of our church, I tend to say the congregation is the leadership. The board is just the way that makes it happen. And I have been very honored to have been able to serve you as president of the board for a year. And I know that the next people that are coming in line are going to do great jobs too. And I'm very excited to see the future. Next slide.
That's the last one.
In fact, this is the end. I was thinking I had to thank you. I'm sorry.
Well,
thank you very much for listening.
I think you may have one.
Nope, nope, no. If you're at the end, you're at the end.
Oh, yeah, okay. I am.
Sorry about that. It's my bad for forgetting. Not Beth's bad, my bad. Anyway, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the minister's report. Sarah?
So in Jerry's report, we got a great review of some of the impressive things that have happened this year, made more impressive by the fact that they happened this year. This has not been a regular year in any way, shape, or form, and that's definitely been true at Northwoods as well. However, flexibility and creativity have always been two of Northwoods' greatest strengths, and our transition to a very strange year of nearly all online church has been a time for those qualities to shine. We've learned a lot in this year that the church has left the building. We have been reminded of the fact that there is very little separation between the personal and the public. We are all in this together. We have learned a little bit about who we are and the things that matter the most to us, because those are the things that well, not all the things, but those are the things that we have been able to continue this year. There are some things that we deeply missed being able to do this year. We know that those things matter as well and look forward to being able to find ways to reincorporate them in the coming year. And finally, we learned how much we really do need each other. This has not been a year to go it alone, even though isolation has been a part of life for many of us. I don't know about you, but for me, being able to join with you every Sunday and to be able to regularly meet with members of various leadership and ministry teams at Northwoods definitely helped me feel less isolated and continued to feel like a part of a community. As I said, Jerry did a great job of going through some of the highlights of this year and some of our great successes. I have a few quick things that I want to highlight for us. Over 60 people participated in making music for worship this year. Over 30 people offered reflections during one of our Northwoods reflection services, which is one of the new things that we added in our online church life that I hope we can carry forward in some fashion. That is a whole lot of people. One of the things that I think is important in worship is that there are many voices that are shared because we have a shared ministry. And as challenging and frustrating as this year has been, no matter as unusual as it has been, we have done an incredibly good job at that. From our reflection services to our collaborative videos and pictures being sent in for various services, people's presence in the service has been visible. And I think that's a really important thing to remember going forward. I also want to celebrate even more the fact that we have a balanced budget. We have steady pledging and steady worship attendance throughout this year that is not less than last year's. We have as many people coming to worship now as we did when we had 2 services in the building. That is a remarkable achievement for a church in this particular year. We have a full slate of excellent folks who have been nominated to positions of leadership. Many churches are struggling to fill their leadership roles as this year has made it harder to stay connected to the congregation. That our leadership development team was able, in much effort, to accomplish this task is another sign of the congregation's good health. Even as we long to return to in-person gatherings, the state of our union is strong. I feel like annual meetings are kind of like State of the Union addresses for church. And I also want to highlight that we have 2 in-person activities that have continued pretty consistently throughout much of this year. One is the twice monthly Black Lives Matter public witness on the North Shore Park Bridge, and the other is our drumming circle. I want to give a special shout out and thanks to David Shantz, Susan Blackmore, and all the folks who worked hard to make those things happen regularly and safely for our community to gather in person. And I think it says something about who we are, that the two things that we have done in person this year consistently have been a drum circle, which feeds our connection to each other and our connection to the natural world, and an action of public witness that connects us to our call to social justice. I feel like that has been really revealing of the things that we value as part of our identity. And I also want to thank the leaders this year. Many of you did not sign on for a year like this. Some of you did, but many of you did not. And I thank you for all of the additional hard work that it took to lead Northwoods throughout the process of navigating all the changes and challenges that we have faced. In the grand tradition of Janus, I don't just want to look back, I also want to look forward. For the next 2 years, my work is to companion this community in our shared ministry and our mission, and support and encourage Northwoods in preparation for entering into settled ministry with a called minister. As your developmental minister, I have a wonderful job to do. The work that you hired me to,
work that I love. As we have for 3 years, we will continue to build something amazing together. Did you know that by the time Northwoods calls its next settled minister in 2023, it will have been 15 years since Northwoods last called a settled minister? So what's the difference between this settled ministry and the interim ministry and developmental ministry that Reverend Donna Renfro and I have been doing in the meantime? A transitional minister, which is both interim ministry and developmental ministry, is a contract minister, which means that I have a contract for a specified time of service, in my case, 5 years. I'm here to do a particular job, part of which is to help Northwoods prepare for settled ministry, and part of which is defined by the developmental goals that the board set when they set out to hire their developmental minister, which we've been in the process of reviewing this year. A transitional minister, whether an interim minister or developmental minister, is hired to help navigate the change between ministries to best set up the congregation for a successful search and healthy ministry with their new settled minister. Another distinction is that a transitional minister is hired by the board as opposed to hired by the congregation. The decision to hire me as your developmental minister was a decision that was voted on and approved by the board. A settled minister, on the other hand, has an ongoing relationship. The letter of agreement with a settled minister does not have a timetable or a designated end of the ministry. The ministry of a settled minister ends when either the congregation or the minister decides that it is time to move on to different things. Many settled ministries are somewhat short, 5 to 7 years. Some last as long as 25 or 30. Part of what an interim or developmental minister does is to help the congregation be ready for a healthy, long settled ministry. A settled or called minister is here to serve the congregation in long-term shared ministry rather than specific time-limited developmental goals like I am. And lastly, perhaps most importantly, a settled minister is called by a congregational vote. At the end of the search process, when your candidate has been selected, there will be a vote by the entire congregation on whether or not to call this person as your settled minister. So you'll also hear a settled minister referred to as a called minister. Their relationship is with the entire congregation as a settled and called minister. Part of my work is to support and encourage Northwoods through the process of preparing for search and going through the search process, and being in partnership with church leadership as they make decisions about what Northwoods wants next for itself. This is a brief outline of what the settlement process will look like for the next 2 years. This fall, we will continue working on assessment and integration, helping Northwoods assess readiness for settled ministry by looking at our history, how Northwoods navigates change, what our mission is and may be, and what the future will look like together with your new settled minister. In December of this year, January of next year, the board and nominating committee will begin to identify members for the ministerial search committee, who will be overseeing that search process. In spring, the congregation will vote on their search committee nominees. The ministerial search committee will be doing a lot of the legwork, but the board and leadership and the congregation as a whole will still have a role to play in the fall of 2022, which will be the process of preparing your congregational search website, your packet, your profile, that will identify both what kind of congregation Northwoods is and how it sees itself, but also what are the factors that are most desirable to you in your incoming new settled minister. In December of 2022, you will submit that congregational record to the search system and officially go into search. Your name will be in the hat. And February and March of 2023 is the process of selecting pre-candidates and interviewing them. Pre-candidates are ministers who are looking for a congregation to serve that you think might be potential good candidates for your settled ministry. Those interviews are usually done on Zoom, done on phone, and then pre-candidates that you are most interested in will come to Northwoods and spend a weekend interviewing with leadership and lead service on Sunday in what's called a neutral pulpit, a UU pulpit that is not Northwoods, so that the search committee can watch them interact with that congregation. March 31st, 2023 will be offer day. Offer day is when you will choose one of those pre-candidates to be your candidate. At this point, you'll begin to discuss contract negotiations and compensation questions and specifics with that candidate. The candidate, you'll only have one, is someone that you expect will be the person who is voted on to become your next called and settled minister. After offer day, late in April 2023, you will have what's known as Candidate Week, where that single top candidate will come to Northwoods, spend a whole week with you, meeting with different parts of the congregation, different ministry teams, the congregation as a whole, and lead service. At the end of that candidate week, the congregation will vote on whether they want to call that particular minister as their next settled minister. In general, we want that vote to be above 90% positive. Congregations who have a more split vote, it's a good sign that that minister may not be the ideal fit, and there may be some tension in that call, and the minister may not elect to take it. That's just sort of some insider baseball. We'll talk about all the details more as that goes on. And then August 1st of 2023 will mark the beginning of your settled ministry with your new called and settled minister. So this will be part of what we are doing together for the next 2 years. But part of the work we're doing together is also continuing to do the good work of shared ministry together, so that your next settled and called minister will enter into a joyous, thriving, healthy version of Northwoods. Part of this will be attending to our developmental goals. We have assessed our current developmental goals, and Sage at the annual meeting gave a short report to that effect. And this fall, the board will continue to review and revise those goals. That will shape some of the shared ministry work together. I have identified several areas of focus that are important for me that I identify as things that I can help with that will help the congregation thrive. One of which is pastoral care. Mira Desi has stepped forward to help me with pastoral care as the leader of a pastoral care team. So I'm hoping to recruit and do some training so that we can have a more formalized process of providing pastoral care and spiritual support to the congregants in need. I also want to work on developing some adult spiritual growth opportunities in addition to what is currently offered. I feel like there's a lot of potential to grow in spiritual maturity, to grow in wisdom, and to grow in our connection to each other outside of Sunday morning programming. And I look forward to seeing what that will look like. This is something that is close to my heart and not really something I've been able to attend to much this year. So I'm looking forward to doing that more. And finally, I look forward to working with leadership development to continue our developmental goal of identifying and supporting strong lay leadership within the emerging leaders in the congregation. Part of my ministry with you will be continuing to live through a pandemic that has uprooted so much, including what church looks like and how we have gathered. There are big questions ahead for us, as well as change and grief and healing. The collective trauma we have lived through and the individual losses we bear will need to be named, felt, and integrated into our lives. And the resilience and strength and compassion we have found will also need to be named, felt, and integrated into our lives. This is deeply spiritual work, and we will do it together. I have always been a more fervent believer in religious community than in any particular religion or notion of divinity. We are, and always have been, here to save and support each other, and in the process find our deepest selves, which we can only do in relation with each other.
We have proved that in ways that we never would have imagined this year. And I look forward to what the next year will bring us. Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to turn off my video now to save bandwidth.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reverend Sarah. I can play Gaylenn's report. I guess I will need to share my screen.
That would be great. Thank you, Jerry.
So, hold on a moment here. Let me bring it up. I may have to restart it, but that'll be okay. All right. So I'm going to share. And I'm sharing.
Good afternoon. I'm Gaylen Pierce, and I serve Northwoods UU Church as the coordinator of the religious education program.
Where did it go?
I had no idea this year that I would once again.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to try it again. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon. I'm Gaylen Pierce, and I serve Northwoods UU Church as the coordinator of the religious education program. I had no idea this year that I would once again be presenting my annual report via Zoom. But here we are, and we're all doing okay. The 2020 year has been a challenge, to say the least, but we've made it through with a lot to cheer about. I'd like to start talking about some of those cheers and share some of the exciting things that we've done this year. These are the challenges and the cheers by Gaylen Pierce, coordinator of the religious education program. The 2020-2021 found challenges not only for the congregation, but for the children and the youth as well. We struggled with attendance, but managed to have 15 or 20 out of our 32 registered children and youth in attendance each week. Those in attendance formed unique bonds and look forward to sharing their lives with each other every week. Our Spirit Play class is our Montessori-based curriculum for children pre-K through first grade. Our teachers this year have been myself, Galen Pierce, Susan Blackmore, and our new face, Rebecca McGovney Ingram. 7 friends pop in and out of the class with an average of 4 to 6 each Sunday. We listen to stories from our 7 UU principals, our UU heritage, different faith traditions, and holy days. We sang songs, learned the words for our chalice lighting, and created together while building a community. Our Explorers class are the children in 2nd to 5th grade, and they attend this class, which was led this year by Beth Shively and Carrie Richards. The 8 children enrolled in this class averaged 3 to 5 students each Sunday. They learned how to apply their Unitarian Universalist faith and values using Disney and Pixar short cartoons. Don't you wish you would have been there? They had some amazing discussions, had the opportunity to create a few projects, and made some new friends. They spent the year exploring different faith traditions using the Crossing Paths curriculum from Soul Matters. While not able to physically visit other places of worship as they usually do during this class, they were still able to experience a variety of worship services through virtual visits and guest speakers from other faiths. Our youth is a class of 4 students who has regular attendance for almost everyone every Sunday. They began work on a new curriculum from Soul Matters developed specifically for youth. They explored themes such as renewal, healing, stillness, and imagination. They listened to music, inspiring words, and had some deep conversations, and even had a bird visiting periodically. We began the summer last year with our curriculum for our summer entitled Life Becomes Religious Whenever You Make It So. We had 10 volunteers from the congregation who came forward and taught anyone who was interested in knitting, foreign languages, painting, collage art, care of exotic pets, and even information about the Mars rover landing. We learned together and began our community building across the generations. And next came Hogwarts and You. Last year in July, approximately 24 witches and wizards received letters that they had been accepted into the magical virtual Hogwarts and UU summer camp. Supplies were ordered and prepared so that the lucky campers would be able to work at home with their parents. The teachers taught through Zoom, they worked with their parents, and they asked questions throughout the day in the virtual library run by volunteers. While the campers were not able to high-five their housemates, they still made friends and enjoyed being together virtually. In October, Northwoods RE program organized a church-wide trunk or treat event. Committees from Northwoods decorated trunks and passed out treats. The treaters brought non-perishable food items. We worked as a community to collect a trunkload of food, which was donated to the Montgomery County Food Bank.
Oh, okay. I just was noticing.
In December, led by the RE program once again, our community came together to benefit seniors. We donated 38 gifts to the Montgomery County Meals on Wheels program, and weren't they appreciative and excited? Our annual holiday pageant was titled Sharing Our Holiday Spirit, Personal Stories from Northwoods. This year, our holiday pageant focused on traditions and memories from not only the children and youth, but from the congregation as well. We shared our favorite ornaments, our family traditions, our holiday stories, and what the Christmas spirit means to each of us. RE celebrated the spring season with an Easter extravaganza. We created a scavenger hunt with activities for everyone to enjoy. In addition, with the help of the whole Northwoods congregation, we collected 60 gifts and over $400, which were donated to Adopt-A-Mom. This organization provides gifts for Mother's Day to moms in domestic abuse shelters in the Montgomery County area. Recently, in May, we held our annual Youth and Children's Service, which was a success as it always is. The topic they chose was healing and racial justice. The junior high and high school classes worked together to create a service which included our thoughts and reflections on where we are now and where we can be if we work together to create healing. The music was uplifting and their words inspiring. This year, we also started a congregation-wide program entitled Soulful Home. The program is designed to bring faith into the everyday lives of families of all designs. We discussed a variety of topics, including deep listening, stillness, beloved community, and commitment. A variety of activities were offered to engage with these topics at all levels. While the program started slowly, interest increased throughout the year. We will be continuing Soulful Home next year and look forward to connecting and growing as a community of faith. I want to thank everyone who helped make our program a success this year by volunteering, donating your time and your talents to our summer program, and helping us make a difference in the lives of others in our community. Our RE program depends on each of you, and you always come through. Thank you so much, Northwoods, for being here for us and for helping the children and youth of our congregation be everything that they can be. If you are interested in being part of this exciting program, whether it's volunteering to teach every Sunday, which we would love to have you do, or just being part of some of our planning and activities, please get in touch with me, Galen Pierce, and we can hook you up to the most exciting and engaging activities you will have at Northwoods. Can't wait to see everybody in August, and I look forward to an exciting new year. Bye, friends.
Okay, thank you very much. So as president, I accept all these reports, and we will be passing them on to Jamie as appropriate for archiving. The next item on our agenda is to approve our annual budget. Hal, would you like to make any additional comments on the budget before we get that process started?
Yeah, just not much though. Let me see if I can share the screen here. Oh, well. Anyway, I just want to make the points that that I made a little earlier. Then number one is that the pledges are almost exactly what they were. And oh yes, in the lower left corner, note, hey, it's a balanced budget, the same number for income and expense. And you know, our budget is mostly salaries and benefits for our employees, plus building maintenance, things we really don't have that much control over. And our income hopefully will be better than it was last year. Service auction, I put $24,000 in there for that, which may be a stretch. We came short of that by about $5,000 this year, but it was, you know, incredibly challenging. I'm assuming that next year we will be in the building and of equal importance that we'll be able to schedule events in the winter and spring that, you know, in people's homes. I don't guarantee that that's going to be the case, but I hope so. So anyway, that's the bottom line, is that we do have a balanced budget, and we're certainly hoping for the best in terms of what we can do next year. And unmute yourself, Jerry.
I know. Thank you, Hal, for your presentation. I think we should probably leave this up while we tackle our next item. Parliamentarian, I believe I heard that we do have a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay. Well, our next step, I'm going to say a few words. We're going to have questions, and then we're going to make a motion to accept the budget. Now, under our bylaws, we cannot revise this budget at this meeting. It requires a yes or a no vote. If you find the budget to be unacceptable in its current version, we request that you vote no for acceptance and start a dialogue with the board and with Hal on what it will take to make it acceptable to you. So I'm going to open up the floor at this point to questions. We're going to limit it to 15 minutes, and questions in chat are also allowed, or you know, you can email me too, or contact the church. I'm going to type my email here in the chat, but basically, okay, I put my email in the chat if you want to. Oops, that's got sent to Jeff. Let me send it to everyone. I'm just striking out with technology today. There we go. So let me see. I'm going to attempt to go to gallery view. Are there any questions from folks at this point?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Did we pay last year? Did we pay for the cleaning of the church? Did we give our cleaning service any extra money, even though we didn't need their work in the building? The same way with childcare. Thank you.
In both cases, we made an attempt to do so. And, you know, when we paid our childcare people, and we were under budget on our cleaning. While we said we'd pay them the regular amount, they actually started invoicing us for less because they were doing less cleaning. So the point is, yeah, we tried to pay them their regular amount, but we wound up being less than that, than what was in the budget.
Okay, I had a note that someone wanted to ask a question, but I've lost the chat here for a moment. Charlie, I think you were first.
Yeah, okay. My question is web expense. Can you detail a little bit about that? Is that just hosting, or is there any room in there for design work if necessary?
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Web expense is probably the wrong name, but that's all of our communications expenses, like the fees for our newsletter stuff, our web hosting, anything that's basically communications goes under that line item.
That was my question, is if it's a catch-all.
Yeah.
But I do have that follow-on, which is, can it be used for design work if necessary? So I'm thinking Beth or somebody like her to, not necessarily Beth per se, I'm just saying you because I know you're a web designer, Beth. And a graphics designer. I'm just saying if we should need any graphics work, can we come from that budget too? And it's not critical, I just was curious.
I think what we have budgeted, those are everything that goes into that is like an annual fee. So I think that line is pretty tight. There's not going to be a whole lot of extra for work like that.
Yeah, I think for sure that would be an item where it would have to be a special expense. Brenda, you had a question?
Yes. I'm noticing that the spiritual life ministry audiovisual has a 0. And I know that there's some discussion that when we go back to in person, we'll have some hybrid services, that there was the potential for some money to be needed there. Is there room to fund that, or would that need to be free?
The board would have to okay that. What happened there with the AV expenses was in the previous fiscal year's budget, there was, I think, something like $3,000 for an upgrade, and Sam had that all scheduled and ready to go, and COVID happened and we didn't spend the money. And so there's no money for that in this year's budget or next year's budget. But if in fact we see the need to do it, I mean, if we need to do it to have an online capability as well as our in-house service, then I'd say, hey, the board will spend the money. Hopefully on this year's budget.
Got it. So that $3,000 that wasn't spent in the past, you could see us possibly still being able to tap into that
Well, of course,
theoretical number.
It disappeared when we came into the current budget.
Sure.
You know, we can't really spend last year's money like that, but the board can modify the budget as it would be needed, and certainly that's something that we've already been thinking about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did we have another question? Brenda still has her hand up, but I think she's been answered. Let me just. Okay, I don't see any other hands up in chat. I see that maybe Catherine has a question. Does anyone else have a question? No? Okay. Well, I would like to proceed to the vote. Perhaps the trick is we talk about how we vote. Jeff, as parliamentarian, would you like to explain to us the process we're going to go through?
Okay. Basically, it's a yes or no vote. We're going to ask, for yes votes, people raise their hands, count them. No votes, people raise their hands. It is, the option is if there's a motion to make it a secret ballot, we can do that, but I would hope we don't need to do that. But I would say though, if it's an obvious pass or fail, we can just go with that. If there's a lot of both yes and no votes, we might need to go and do a more exacting count. It's close, but
I vote yes.
If we get an obvious majority saying yes, then that will be our procedure. Basically, if I'm not satisfied that it's an obvious yes or no vote, then I will call for something more exacting. But I'm guessing that probably won't be necessary.
Jeff, may I ask a question?
Sure.
If two people are using the same device and we use the virtual hand raising, how will we do that?
Jeff, do you want me to step in?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
Can you mute that? Yes. The initial thought was that you would text to Reverend Sarah. Reverend Sarah is not available now. Jeff, are you able to see?
Yeah, it can text me.
Chats? Are you able to see chats?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would suggest is, Jeff, as parliamentarian, if you want to vote for two people, do a private message to Jeff, and private message just to make sure that he sees it. It shows up with red, and then put your name, each of your names and how you're voting so that he can get them both.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
You could make it a public message, but it would just be confusing. And, it's not a private vote right now, but it would be a lot of stuff going through there. I just suggest private message so that it really calls itself to Jeff's attention.
Okay. I see there are some hands up, but we haven't said what we're raising our hand for yet. Our methodology is going to be, we are going to ask for a no vote first.
Put your
So
hand
those of you who have raised your hand anticipating you're going to get to vote for, might investigate.
Can we end the screen share?
How you unraise your hand.
How do you unraise your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a no vote first so we can just get an idea of what to expect. So I would like to request no votes, either hands raised now or message to Jeff in the chat directly if there's 2 of you voting no. I want to keep the screen share up so that we can see the budget. People may have questions about it, but you can, if you want to see the gallery view, there's a little handle just to the right of the screen share, and you can use that to pull and make your gallery share part bigger, which I just pulled myself.
Does somebody have to make a formal motion?
Yes, we need a motion
second.
in a second.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion for voting on the budget, starting with no votes and then yes votes.
I so move.
Okay, we have a second.
I second.
I second.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we need to vote on that one or not.
No.
Actually, this is the part I haven't thought about, because normally in a meeting, we ask for a vote after a move in a second.
Yeah, we
are required to. So all in favor, let's raise hands.
You said we were going to do no first.
I did, but this is different. This is,
okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
This is the vote to decide whether to vote.
To vote. This is the
no,
vote to say we're
no, we have a motion to vote on the budget. That's what we're voting on now.
The motion to vote is what we're voting on.
No.
So please.
Jerry, you're confusing me, Jerry.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying the vote we're doing right now is a vote to accept the motion to proceed to a vote. Right?
No, there is absolutely no need for that, Jerry.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the budget. That is what we're voting on.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction, parliamentarian. I thought we had to vote on the motion. No? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. Luckily for you all, and for me, I guess, this is my first term as president. So,
at last.
You haven't had to endure this before.
Well, what are we doing? I don't know, Mars.
So, everybody, please listen. We have a motion to vote for the budget. We are going to proceed with that vote. So I'd like to ask everyone, we're going to wait for the hands to clear here. I guess we have to wait for them to clear.
Yeah, because I already put ours in.
You want to take our hand down now?
Put your hands down.
Take your hands down.
If you can physically take your hands down, please do so. We are asking for no votes to not accept the budget. So, parliamentarian, are you seeing any? I am not seeing any.
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. So I'm going to declare that that's the count for no is 0. Now we're going to get votes for yes, accepting the budget. So I'm raising my hand.
We got it, Mars. We got it.
If I found the right button.
How do we raise our hand?
There is along the bottom, if you're on a computer, and I'm not sure where it is if you're on a phone, but along the bottom, there's a little smiley face that says reactions.
Smiley face.
You click on that, and there's a raise hand option.
There's a smiley face.
Are people not seeing that little smiley face with the word reactions?
And
it
if
might be on.
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay.
It goes away.
Well, you have to put your mouse on it and then click.
Jerry, it's under participants.
On a piece.
Not on my computer. On my computer, it's under reactions.
Reactions is different.
Reactions.
So it depends if you have Zoom on full screen or as a window on your desktop.
Okay.
And also, it depends on which version of Zoom you have.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, we have a note I have a note on my computer that says 40 participants raised their hand.
Okay, so I raised my
Count
hand.
that as 40.
Okay.
Okay, click on the search bar though.
I know we did this last year, and I just wish I could remember better what our exact procedure was, but we'll get through this. We got through it before.
And
We'll get through it again.
That's about right. Yeah, 40.
Okay, I'm going to, just pro forma, I'm going to say if anyone out there wanted to vote no, so far we have not recorded any no votes. If anyone actually wanted to vote no, please send me a text in chat.
I said yes.
And because otherwise the motion is passing.
Just
yes.
Go.
Okay, Jeff, at what point, you let us know when you feel it's appropriate to say whether we passed or not.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's been enough time. We've got at least 40 yes votes, which is more than half, so it's going to pass anyway. But if I think it's very important, if anyone has a negative vote, even if it's not going to change, they need the opportunity to express themselves.
I agree. I agree.
So
maybe I have to vote back.
So the budget is passed.
See.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for for helping us with that vote.
Oh, here, so go. Here, stop. Here.
Okay, so they should, all the hands raised should go away in a minute or two when they clear the Zoom hurdle. Our next step is the election of leadership positions at our church.
Hey Jerry, real quick before you start, I'm gonna mute everybody so that we had some folks who unmuted that I'm gonna mute again to make sure we don't have interruptions. So you'll have to unmute yourself again, okay? All right.
Okay, now I am going to present the slate of candidates from leadership development for election today. When I am done introducing the various people, we will have a call for floor nominations. And if you are going to call for a floor nomination, the nominee must be present, must be eligible, the same as everyone else, and must have given their permission to be nominated before this meeting. So first off, our first position for president-elect of the Board of Trustees is Sarah De Silva. And Sarah wishes to introduce herself.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I'm Sarah De Silva. I think I know everyone a little bit. And I have been coming here to Northwoods since 2016. And I have served on the membership committee, met many of you at many of you newer folks at meet and greets. I used to do those until Phyllis took that over. And I am passionate about seeing us grow as a congregation, connecting different generations together, and seeing us increase our footprint in the community and acting on what we say our values are. So I'm looking forward to serving in a new capacity. Oh, and I have two kids, Matthew and Carter. Matthew is 7 and Carter is 9. And my husband is Marco, and he's come to a couple of services, but he's not a member of Northwoods.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Our candidate for parliamentarian, the Board of Trustees, Mary Chimarusi. Mary became a member of Northwoods in March 2005. Her first activity supporting Northwoods was when she and Marcy started the cancer support group that met for 8 years, supporting members and non-members through the cancer process in their lives, and Mary joined the folk choir. In 2007, Mary was asked by the Board of Trustees to document processes for the committees, which led to a big project editing the bylaws with Terry Lineberger. She was elected vice president in 2008 and then became president in 2009 when Reverend Ellen became our settled minister. Through the years, she's been a member of the HR committee, the chair, has been in leadership development, pastoral care lay ministry, been on the endowment committee, the COM, which is now called the shared ministry, and the Avant-Garden Gallery. These past few years, she's taken a rest from many of these activities, except for the folk choir and HR committees, which she claims is her favorite activities. Mary was pleased to be asked to be parliamentarian and will welcome the challenge it brings to our members, to serve our members this way, to the board and to her doing the work for the church. Our nominee for foundational trustee is Molly McMills. Molly McMills, her late husband Bruce, and her son Alex became members of Northwoods in 2006. Molly is a retired teacher, and you probably know her best through the music that she performs with others here. But she also serves Northwoods as a member of the Service Action Committee and is on the Sanctuary Committee. She is looking forward to serving in a bigger capacity because she feels Northwoods has always been there for her and her family, and she likes the ways we as a church contribute to our community. For Secretary, Board of Trustees, the slate nominee is Jennifer Walker. She's standing in for a second term. Jennifer began attending Northwoods in 2005. In the past, she has worked as a kitchen angel and sang with the folk choir. She looks forward to returning to her role as a greeter when the church reopens. She recently served as Congregational Life Chair before being elected to the board as secretary in 2019. Jennifer hopes to continue to serve Northwoods as secretary for another term. Now I'm going to move on to the positions for the Leadership Development Committee. Jeff Graber. Jeff is running for the Leadership Development Committee. For most of his time at Northwoods, Jeff has been an RE teacher, doing his best in the tradition of Socrates to corrupt the youth of our congregation. For the past 2 years, he's been parliamentarian of the Board of Trustees, making sure that liberal Democrats don't steal our church's elections, which is very important. Finally, for the Leadership Development Committee, Susan Hawkins. Susan has been a member of Northwoods for almost 20 years and has served one term the board as program counsel and secretary and in leadership development. She has also been on the RE committee and has taught RE for several years. It is wonderful to have such a caring community, particularly in these trying times. And Susan is very grateful for Northwoods and for all of its members. As per bylaws, before we call for the election, I would like to ask if there are any floor nominations for any of these positions. As I've said, floor nominees must be present, eligible, and have given their permission to be called. No? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the slate of nominees.
I say yes, my hand is raised.
Second. Second, Nelson.
Second, okay. So, parliamentarian, you want to call for the vote?
Okay. And everyone's eager to raise their hands, maybe, and
that's fine.
And
yeah, we'll call for yes votes.
I vote yes.
And Are you getting a count of hands, Jerry?
So far, we have 38.
I've got
yes,
several.
At least one
saying voting yes.
Now we have 41 have raised their hand.
I noticed that when I went to raise my hand, it was still raised. Is there a way for the host to lower all the hands at once so that we can vote instead of?
Well, you can lower your hand. That's one of the choices once you've raised your hands in the reactions button that I have. I don't know if that's available to everybody.
Can lower the hands as well. But
it's like a toggle.
Yeah, I'm not really the host.
You can lower it. If it's down, you can.
Am I co-host now? I'm not even sure.
I would suggest for the next vote that the host be asked to lower all hands before the vote, just to be complete. I've got no issue with what we're doing.
Okay, I'll remember that. I'll write that in my notes. This is the last vote we're going to take today.
Oh,
assuming that.
I've gotten 3 messages saying that more than that 2 people are voting yes from the same, same device. So,
well, we have 43 hands raised.
So that's 46. Okay.
All right. So let's have. Are we ready to move on to the no?
Okay, let's lower all the hands first.
I just lowered my hand. Huh.
Can someone who's hosting just lower all the hands, please?
I will see if I can.
We still have 7 hands raised, 6 hands raised, 5 hands raised, 4 hands raised, 3.
Carl, yours is raised. Carl Mueller.
Okay, no, we're not voting yet, so please don't raise your hand. We've asked people to lower their hand.
No. No.
Okay, I think we have no hands raised.
Okay, so if for any no votes, raise your hand or send me a message, or both. Anybody? Okay. I'm gonna count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Motion carries.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Parliamentarian. I believe we have accepted the slate of candidates. Thank you all very much for that. We have 2 more items on the agenda, so don't log off unless you need to. A fire, a dog wanting out, something like that. It's the only 2 excuses that are allowed. Okay, well, thanks everybody. That is our election. We have passed the budget and we have okayed the slate of candidates, so that's great. We actually have 2 more items on the agenda. First, we have the presentation of the developmental survey and goals and what the board sees as the status of church reopening at the moment. Sage Accardo, who will take over as board president in July, will present on the development goals service, and I will present the reopening status. We will have questions after each one if you want to ask, and we're going to use the usual rules. And of course, you can also email me any questions you might have. So I would like to let Sage go ahead and go.
All right, thank you, Jerry. I believe that Beth will be running the PowerPoint for me, and I'm going to give Beth full credit for the beautiful PowerPoint she put together of my summaries.
It'll take me a minute to get it going. It seems to be being obstinate. Oh. Oh, come on. Okay, we'll go to normal. That sounds good, doesn't it? Normal? Okay. Slideshow. Okay. Okay, here it comes. Okay. Better?
There we go. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Okay. In August of 2018, we called Reverend Sarah as our developmental minister for what is a 5-year term. And we are evaluating when we did that, we set developmental goals. And so at the halfway mark, we went through 2 services, both looking back and looking forward through our developmental ministry. And Beth, you can move to the next. So we are halfway, roughly, through our developmental ministry, and we did small group conversations, which many of you participated in, and many people took notes and submitted them, and I've gone through those summaries and summarized. So each line item in all of this has untold paragraphs behind it. Many people participated in this, and none of these have names attached. And sometimes they're contradictory. Different people have different perspectives that aren't all the same. So this is just a snapshot of what we've received. Next. Oh, sorry, Beth. I guess I went through that one in there too. Go ahead and do next. So looking back, we talked about a trusting culture, and overall the conclusion was that we have a respectful community. It's strong and getting stronger and leads to trust. For hospitality, we received a lot of praise for the membership committee. For leadership, we saw a lot of questions, a lot of flagging as needing work, mostly on understanding what leadership was, who were the leaders, and what did they really do. The UU identity is well communicated within the church. And there were a lot of thoughts and feelings on social justice. It received a lot of praise and a lot of questions, looking for ways to be more involved, looking for more focus. Next. So looking back at trusting culture, the overall opinion was that our community has a very strong, respectful culture, and it's getting stronger. We received praise for the Healthy Congregation Committee, but some people who requested clarity as to what it was and what it does. We received a lot of praise for Reverend Sarah's leadership, and some comments about things we have learned. We've learned to avoid triangulation. There's been a distinct lack of drama and discord within the greater congregation. And we received a suggestion for integrity talks to continue prevention from drama and discord. Next. Oh, that's the same one. There we go. Leadership was consistently flagged as needing work, and generally speaking, it was, who are the leaders? What do they do? We don't really know what to say about who is leaders. So that's more of a communication than any complaint about particular leadership. I have a question that says, what does avoid triangulation mean? And that means, like, if I were to go to Susan, I'll use that name, we've got a lot of those, to complain about Beth instead of going directly to Beth if we had an issue between the two of us. So triangulation is pulling in a third party to more vent than connect and solve a problem. Next. The Unitarian Universalist identity seems to be well communicated, which needs to be and is an ongoing thing we're doing. There was plenty of praise for sermons and other services, and praise for religious education as communicating our UU identity for our youth. There is kind of the ongoing Unitarian Universalist question about spiritual exclusivity and if we are or aren't using God or Christian language, which I think is something that everyone has their own opinions on. Some people want to see more of it. Some people want to see less of it. Next. Looking back at social justice, there were a lot of requests for middle of the road ways to be involved, somewhere in between showing up at Saturday demonstrations and, quote, just caring. There was a lot of praise for the Black Lives Matter demonstrations and for the sanctuary effort and for religious exploration. There was also a lot of requests for more focus, suggestions like an annual theme to focus on, because we all care about so many things, but we become spread too thin with too many causes. So the suggestion to focus. Next. Communication is an ongoing theme here of people want more communication, not just Facebook, not just Beacon Bits, questions about where is the information and how do we know what's going on. There was some comments about microaggression for people of color, which is something that we want to work on, that with communication, and communication where we want to be sure that we're inviting people to participate in a variety of things, that people feel invited and welcomed and not shamed or discouraged because of what they aren't doing. Next. Looking forward and building our new normal, because goodness, this halfway year has been an unusual one. Next. Talking about pandemic versus our old normal. These are some things that people said they missed. Coffee hour and casual conversations, performing and watching live music, the children, the building, being together. Next. Things that we want to keep from this year of differences. We want to keep virtual options for live streaming the service and for recordings of music and so on, as we have on our YouTube channel right now. There were also several people who said they wanted to keep virtual committee meetings, that those have been convenient. Next. Talking about the pandemic versus the old normal. Some people felt like we were too comfortable and content with Zoom and needed to step out. There was the transition, questions about the in-between time and how will we transition to in-person, which is an ongoing conversation, which we'll hear more about in the next. Well, Jerry will talk more about that as we move to our new normal. Next. As a compassionate community, we got good marks on we do well with compassion and the need to be intentional about staying in touch, that's something we've done well with. Some getting to know you, the connections group and lunch bunch and newcomer meet and greets are good ways to build a compassionate community. I read a lot of different groups that talked about the concern of small groups becoming cliquish, who is and isn't in them. And that's kind of the toggle with small groups. You want to feel like you belong and have your own place, but we want to feel like everyone is welcome to join those small groups. And the call to do better at supporting community members with various needs like meals and rides. Next. Talking about the search for truth, things that help in search for truth. Book clubs, small groups, adult forum, meditation, hearing others' experiences, and using the UU principles as guidance. Sermons, the spiritual message from the pulpit is good. There was also a call for, this is one of our contradictions. We got several comments about the spiritual message from the pulpit being good and and some comments that it's too spiritual and we'd like to see it be more intellectual. And some calls for more guest speakers from within the congregation. And then a comment about small groups where we need more engagement of people joining small groups because sometimes they are offered and not enough people sign up for them to actually take place. Next. Courageous action. Support from within the community helps us participate in courageous action. It gives us courage for many actions and to push out of our comfort zone as individuals and as a group. There's the question of how can we have more dialogue with people with different worldviews and not just within our own congregation? How can we be better known in the community? And a desire to have our church leadership and Reverend Sarah be more known within the community for social justice. Things we're doing are causes we could support: Arts in Action, Millbend, the Women's Shelter, the Montgomery County Food Bank, and with Food on the First, Tamina Interfaith. There's a request for more focus on topics. So again, the idea of an annual focus topic or something along those lines. And seeking ways, some ways we have to be involved are letter or postcard writing, attending rallies, marches, and talks, self-study, adult forum, book studies, and discussions. Next. In summary, Northwoods at its best is community and having fun together and jumping in to respond to needs, choosing to be part of the solution. It's welcoming, non-judgmental, and a safe space with more diversity and the needs, and it meets the needs of both introverts and extroverts. Next, I think that's the last, isn't it, Beth?
Yeah, it's the last.
Great. So we will be continuing to reflect on where we stand within our developmental ministry and potentially setting new goals for the end of the second half of our developmental ministry as we move forward.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sage and Beth, for helping us with creating that, helping us create that presentation. Thank everybody who participated in our groups and who gave us the material that we used to make that savory stew of a PowerPoint. Thanks all. We have a little bit of time for quick questions if folks have it. Suggestions of causes and things like that, probably be best to email those, but go ahead and suggest them if you want. You have a few minutes and then we'll go to the second presentation. Are there any questions or comments?
I put a thing in the chat. I'd like to let everybody know here in particular, but I'd like to try and spread the word. There is a thing called the UU Houston organization, which is 10 UU churches in the Houston area. And if you haven't gone there before, go check. They have a nice calendar. We're on it, by the way. I typically try to come to the meetings that they have at least once a month representing Northwoods, and I'd appreciate other people joining me there too. But basically it's a way to say what are other people doing? What are we doing? And letting them know. Finally, if we have global things, like there have been a number of protests downtown and such, through this Houston.org, you can get on a mailing list, you can get on a text thing indicating that you could come and participate in some of these events. So I just wanted to make everybody aware there's a lot of stuff going on in Houston, and we're definitely a part of this community, and they are aware that we're a part of this community. And I'd like to, if you have any inclinations to get involved in things like protests and such, or letter writing or whatever, as a Houston community, please get in touch with that and go look at it.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
I have a question, and you can tell me if this is not the appropriate place for this question. But as we move forward, does a developmental minister ever become a settled minister? Are they considered if they want to be, or?
That's a great question, Beth. Thank you very much. What will happen is that we will have to form a ministerial search committee, and that committee will go through the normal process. I should also mention that we will have to decide if we wish to have a search for another developmental minister, that is to say, a minister who is a developmental minister, or a search for a settled minister. That's step one. Step two is form the search committee for whichever of those types of minister we think we should have. And Reverend Sarah can submit as a possible candidate for that search committee to choose. So specifically, I assume you're asking about Reverend Sarah, and yes, it is possible through that process that she could become our either next developmental or our settled minister. I don't know if there's people want to make more comments about that know more than me, but certainly I'm concerned about that too.
I have a question. I have not been involved in the runnings of the church for a long time, but it used to be that the present minister was not allowed to stay with the church, that they were required to leave.
That is true of an interim minister. That is not true of a developmental minister.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's the difference.
Okay.
Judy, you might also be thinking about when a minister leaves the congregation and ceases to be their minister, they do not have contact with members of that congregation for at least a year. And that is a standard practice.
No, I just,
okay.
I think I was thinking about interim, the other I didn't worry about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone else? All right, I don't see anything, so I'm gonna go on with my presentation. I'm sure you're all interested in hearing about this. Beth, if you wanna cue up my opening presentation. I am going to present our current space. We've actually shown these ideas to a few people, and I think our main feedback that we got was, how can you say exactly how things will be in 3 months? You know, whenever we actually do open, and that's fair. Things are changing quickly. We are only presenting our thoughts now. And as CDC guidelines change, other things change, we will be changing what our thoughts are up toward for how we will be reopening our worship space. Our next slide. As background, how far can we see? Well, if there's fog in the valley, being up on the high mountain only lets you see the top of the fog. Sometimes I feel like that's what we're seeing. We consider reopening at every board meeting. When I had my little thing about wanting a board meeting without reopening on the agenda, I wasn't lying. I haven't had one yet. Maybe as a past president, I'll see one eventually. The presentation I'm going to show you is not a set of hard and fast rules for a permanent solution. It's a snapshot of what we think is important and what we are considering now. We don't know the details, but our expectations are that at some point we are going to reopen, hopefully during this fiscal year. And I just want to say that we know that what we have is not going to be perfection, but we are looking for solutions for reopening that are good enough for the moment, safe enough to try. And you know, we may try some things in reopening that we decide don't work. So just this process is not going to end when we are finally back in the church. Next slide, please. I have some comments from the Worship Arts Committee that I want to show first, because I think they're very germane to some, especially to some things we saw in Sage's presentation. We will want to have more than an only in-person service. There will be some kind of online presence going forth, but having two different separate services, a custom online service and a separate in-person service, are just not going to be possible with our current manpower. The committee, as it is currently composed, is tapped out, cannot do both. And what we think is, what Worship Arts has suggested, and the board agrees, making our in-person service available online in some way is probably going to be our best solution. Next, please. Just so that you all understand this, one reason why we cannot stream the music we put in our services is there's copyright issues. We can only send those things out in an outlet that has limited participation, like Zoom. So, you know, there may be a future solution that can fix this, but that's our situation right now. Having a Zoom host that can talk to the Zoom audience and share camera views of what is going on in the service would probably be ideal. And the Worship Arts Tech Group has been developed. Winetta Cooper has volunteered to be the supervisor. You may remember Rusty asking about that at our last discussion of this as to the church. And it looks like that's going to happen. So she'll be creating a team to marshal the resources we have, lay out a budget, and create a smoothly functioning organization. Next, please. All right, so what does the board think? Well, in the past, we thought that maybe end of summer would be the earliest or most likely time. Worship Arts has suggested the incoming service might be a good idea to use as our goal, and we think this is reasonable. Reverend Sarah has her mini sabbatical coming up, and we already have Sunday Zoom speakers lined up for mid-June, all of July, and parts of August. So the Sundays while Reverend Sarah's off will be Zoom Sundays. So that's one of our, you know, pegs in the sand. I hesitate to say lines in the sand. That is one of our considered pins. Zoom till Reverend Sarah's back. Next, please. So how are we going to start? Well, we've had some ideas for slow starts. One idea would be to have watch parties in the building where we display the service up on the projector, but we are together in the room watching. Kind of a easing back. Another idea, as I've already mentioned, is that we would have a team that videotapes our service and streams it online with Zoom after we have gone to in-person services. Now we're not saying this is how it's going to be. This is just what we're thinking might work right now. Next, please. What about finances? Well, financially, the church needs to go back in person. We need the income. There are fundraising events that require us to be in the building. And Share the Plate and Food on the First have been going, and I'm glad. But they really do work best when we can do a fund collection as part of the service. So that's our financial consideration. Next, please. So let's get back inside, but the Worship Arts team has really created wonderful, meaningful, spirit-affirming services, and we need to applaud and acknowledge their work. And in fact, when we go back to in-person service, people may miss some elements of what we've been seeing online, although, frankly, I can't think of anything I'll miss that we can't have in person, but I'm sure there will be things. We will get a lot of joy from seeing each other under the big round window. And I think that when we're in person, it will be a very good thing for us, and we will be glad we're back in person. Next, please. So what about vaccinations? Oh, big bugaboo. The BOT is not going to require vaccinations. We're not going to ask. It's a matter of privacy. And we know there can be valid medical reasons a person's unable to be vaccinated. Furthermore, at this point, children under 12 aren't eligible for vaccines. Ours is an inclusive community by choice. We want to attract visitors, and we do not want to raise a banner by requiring vaccinations before visitors can attend. So bottom line here is we are not going to have a vaccination requirement or statement. That is how we feel right now. We're hoping that end of summer, autumn, as Margaret put in the chat, children 2 to 11 should be able to start getting their vaccinations, and that will be great. That will be a real load off everybody's mind. Next, please. What about masking? Well, at present, we are asking people to wear masks in the building mostly because of this issue of people that can't be vaccinated and children. However, we know CDC guidelines are changing, and we cannot predict what those requirements will be when we reopen. We expect there will be an update from the CDC, and we will modify what we're saying here as guidelines change. So even though we're asking people to wear masks in the building now, that may not be true. That may not be what we do when we actually have our in-person services. Next, please. What about services on other events? What's going on here? Are we going to have 1 or 2 services? Okay, the board feels very strongly at this moment that it will be a single service. As we are opening, we need to reach decisions on how to restart events like coffee hour, lunch bunch, adult forum, the coffee house, committee meetings, RE, the list goes on and on. Please bear with us while we work it all out. We're not there yet. But we anticipate that the first service at least will be a single service. Next, please. What about small group meetings? Well, hey, we have a new published set of guidelines. We ask that groups that wish to meet in the church contact the church administrator so that we can keep our calendar up to date. And our current spacings guidelines say that garden room is best for meetings of up to 10. Room 10 upstairs can accommodate 15. As I said before, at present, we request mask wearing inside the building, especially in the hallways. But we are open for small group meetings now. Next, please. So, are we walking on thin ice? Well, I'm going to credit Jeff with this idea. We know that as we are proceeding, there is thin ice here with dangers and things to consider. We can see our goal across the stream, but we still have to get there and cross some thin ice to get there. The guidelines we have been using, but so please bear with us. We have had guidelines about when to start in-person services from the UUA that were developed at the start of lockdown when risks were higher. Things like, some rate of vaccination, some particular transmissivity, some particular number of deaths per 100,000. We have seen those kinds of numbers. But we're thinking that the way things are going right now, those guidelines seem to be too strict. So we're going to be reopening following our own timetable, follow how CDC guidelines change, and we will respond to local risk trends. Next, please. We want to get together. The Board of Trustees will continue to monitor statistics. And the reason why I emphasize the board is because the board is not responsible for saying how services are going to be run. That's up to Worship Arts. The board is not responsible for a lot of things, but the board is responsible for the safety of our members. And board procedures are geared towards member safety. We will be monitoring statistics and we will reopen the church when we feel it is safe to do so. We will not necessarily have a perfect solution, but it will be good enough for now and safe enough to try. Someone has asked a question about social distancing. That is something that goes with the guidelines for the numbers of people in the rooms. That's the only guidance we have that we are offering right now about safety, is we have the 6 foot distancing in the meeting rooms right now. When the church is planning to open, we may have a different guideline about spacing. I'm sorry to not be able to say it for sure, but it's better to say we will decide when we know more closer to the time than to make some kind of pronouncement now that is upsetting to people and that is not really realistic. So I believe I have one more. I do. Thank you. We will get through this together as we have gotten to the point we are at now together. Thank you very much. And I will take, if there are more questions, I will attempt to answer them.
What about singing? Is there going to be any restriction?
Not making
on
a decision. We're not making a decision.
Okay.
What about dancing? Not making a decision. What about standing on your head? Oh, that's definitely allowed. Okay, but I'm sorry. I wish we could, you know, we have actually iterated on that question, Terry, and we have iterated on the question of spacing. When we talk to people, you know, and say, this is what we're thinking, everyone says, you know, how do you know that'll be appropriate at the time? And the answer is we don't. We're going to have to see. Allowable yoga positions, that's up to the yoga instructor. No, kidding. I think actually yoga probably, well, what are you, about 3 feet spaced maybe in yoga? 3 or 4 feet spaced? Yoga's probably pretty safe. I'm sorry, but we are not going to ask people about their vaccination status. No, that's a real point of discomfort for us because there are so many reasons. In the first place, like if we were your employer, it would be illegal for us to ask you about your vaccination status. Now, we're not your employer, we're your church, but we are still, you know, we're just not comfortable with given the many reasons why a person cannot be vaccinated and the fact that children can't be, we're just not comfortable with asking. I know, I actually don't mind telling you my status. In fact, I posted it on Facebook. So if you go back in your Facebook history, you'll see my status, but I'm not asking you. Okay, that's the point. And I'm definitely not going to require that to come in. Asking people if they're vaccinated can actually be a kind of shaming, which was discussed in the developmental goals thing. You know, there can be a lot of reasons why people aren't vaccinated. Now, I don't know if the UUA is going to respond or not. We'll see. Are there any other specific questions at this point?
Jerry, I wanted to clarify. We could theoretically require people to disclose their vaccination status without violating it. However, we are not a community. We are not an insular community, right? Even if 100% of Northwoods members voluntarily disclosed that they were vaccinated, which would not be the case, just so you know, there are people who will not be vaccinated in Northwoods. We are an open, welcoming community. So anybody could walk in off the street. And so we cannot assume that we are all vaccinated, so we must act as though we are not, right? Thanks.
Okay.
And I have a question.
Yes.
When do you think I could ask the board about their decision about mill bid?
You can ask the board anytime you want, but I don't know when we'll give you an okay. I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't know. You're one of the people we're going to work with to discuss about opening for other reasons, which I mentioned in my slide. So I don't have a problem with your approaching the board and asking them and discussing it. We need to open that conversation, but I didn't put that in my slide on purpose. I don't know today. Are there others? Yeah, we're seeing some numbers. 35% officially, 35% of the 16 plus age people in Montgomery County are vaccinated. And of course, folks who have had COVID have the antibodies in their body, although you can catch it twice. When you hear people say that we have a 60% herd immunity, they're talking about taking the number of vaccinations and adding the number of people that have had COVID together. And that's where they get that number of the percent of people who are immune. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're safe. Okay, are there more questions? All right, everybody. Well, thank
Jerry,
you.
I have a question.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
go ahead, Kate.
Based on what you're saying right now, should service auction plan to be live in November or no?
I don't know, Kate. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know. November is even after ingather.
I know, but
My
we have
feeling,
to start now.
my personal feeling is that
plan.
once we open the building for services, all former activities that take place in the building should be okay. That's my feeling, but the board hasn't voted on that. And we haven't we haven't discussed it in a meeting yet.
Can I make a comment?
Please do, Jeff.
It's similar. We're doing Hogwarts live in the building, but we started out, we did not know how it would work. And our approach was from the beginning was we're going to plan for both having Hogwarts virtual and having it live, which was almost double the work at first. And as we worked on it, we thankfully found a way to do it live. And unless something really drastic happens, we are doing it live. But I would say, and it's increasing the workload, but I would for service auction, I would recommend now have a plan for doing it live and have another plan for doing it virtually. I mean, that's, again.
You mean at the same time?
No, I mean, it's at some point you're going to decide which one you're going to do, or possibly at the same time. But I mean,
you have any idea what it takes to put service auction online?
I know it's doubling. It's doubling the work. I didn't say.
No, it's not. That's not even what I'm saying. That just the sheer numbers of hours of planning to put it live is plus the expense, the cost. Do you want to experience the cost before we commit to it, or?
Service auction is also going to be one of the stakeholders that we want to get involved. So come to the board meeting and let's talk about it. When do you need to know?
Okay.
It's that kind of question. When do you need to know? And do you need to know tomorrow? Or can you wait to learn sometime in the middle of the summer or what? Tell us when you need to know and work with us, and we'll do our best to reach a good decision.
Okay. I will be at the meeting.
I'll put you on the agenda.
Okay.
I have one more. I have to do one more agenda, and it's going to have reopening on it. I know that. That's fine. Okay. Well, thank you very much. parliamentarian, do we need a motion to, well, okay, first, Reverend Sarah has closing words for us. I'd like to move on to them.
Thank you, Jerry.
The church has left the building. The church is not a place, it is a people. The church is not only a steeple above the tree-lined streets and cars. It is not only a round window. Rather, it is a people proclaiming to the world that we are here for the work of healing and of justice. The church is not walls, built stone upon stone, held together by mortar, but rather person linked with person, linked with person, all ages and genders and abilities, a community built on the foundation of reason, faith, and love. The church is not just a set of doors open on Sunday morning, but the commitment, day after day and moment after moment, of our hearts creaking open the doors of welcome to the possibility of new experience and radical welcome. The church is not simply a building, a steeple, a pew. The church is the gathering together of all the people and experiences and fear and love and hope in our resilient hearts, gathering, however we can, to say to the world, welcome, come in, lay down your heartache and pick up hope and love, for the church is us, each and every one of us, together, a beacon of hope to this world that so sorely needs it.